Good afternoon, everyone. If I could have your attention. Thank you guys so much for being here for our first kind of in-person event we've had in 14 months. We are so excited to have you here. My name is Justine Paradiso. I am the VP of Programming and Events at the Butte Area Chamber of Commerce. And like I said, on behalf of myself, the YP board, our chamber board, thank you all for being here today. This is very exciting. Not only is this our first hybrid, hopefully only given all the hiccups I've had this morning, it is our YP Awards Luncheon. So we're very excited to be here and I'm thankful to have all of you. Before we begin, I want to thank our sponsors who make this event possible. Medical Associates, Midwest One Bank, Q Casino, TH Media, Cartograph, Collins Community Credit Union, Cottingham and Butler, DePaco Community Credit Union, Dutrack Community Credit Union, Eagle Point Solar, Forge Social, Fidelity Bank and Trust, Grand River Center, Grand River Medical Group, GreenState Credit Union, John Deere Dubuque Works, Kinsinger Harmon Conradi Attorneys at Law, Coco and Associates, McCoy Group, McGraw-Hill, Origin Design, Pepper Sprout, Tyson Home Farm Auto, and Platinum Supplemental Insurance. Can we give them a round of applause? These fantastic companies are what lets us do these programs, so we're very excited to have them on board year after year. I want to take a moment to recognize our current board of directors. These individuals have been in their role since 2019. None of them anticipating the fact that they would be in that role for that period of time, but no one can predict those things, and I'm just very proud of the group that you see on the screen now, and those of you who are virtual will see later. These individuals have been really great, and they exemplify what it means to be a YP person. So round of applause for all of them. I want to give special recognition to the board members who are rolling off this year: Digger Kurt, Jacob Riersbigge, and Anna Johnson. We thank you all so much for sharing your time and talent with all of us. As the board planned today's event, we decided that some of the typical awards we give out really didn't make a lot of sense, given that we've been living behind computer screens for the last year. With that being said, it wouldn't be an awards luncheon if we didn't give out at least one award, and that would be our YP of the Year award. At this time, I would like to invite Digger Kurt to the stage to do the presentation. You can clap.
Feels good to be back. Thank you, Justine. It is my privilege to present the YP of the Year Award to a person who exemplifies what it means to be a leader. Like everyone here, this person had no idea what was in store for us for 2020, but forged ahead and really pushed us to promote YP, encourage member engagement, especially in a virtual world. When this person agreed to leave the YP board, they couldn't have known it would be a 2-year term. And they stepped up to the plate and did so with thoughtfulness and positivity. In his last official job before he ages out, Scott, I would like to present the award of YP of the Year to our board president, Scott McGuire. Unfortunately, Scott is not able to be with us today. He's on vacation, but wanted to share this message.
What's up, YP? Real quick, I'm wonderfully humbled to have received the YP of the Year award. It's been a great couple of years. It's been very honored to serve among great boards. So thank you to each and every one of you for helping us grow our brand and get through these past couple of years. A big thank you also to the Chamber of Commerce, Molly Grover, my friend Mary Gentry, and everybody involved there. You know, we're excited to be back in person, and I think we've got a really good year ahead of us. Kevin Myers stepping into the president role will do a fantastic job. Congratulations to you, Kevin. Justine handling on the chamber side will do a fantastic job as well. So I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you. I encourage you all to get involved, try to find a spot that will allow you to get to know your community, some of the leaders, and network with others outside of your own company. YP is a great place for that. I think as we continue forward, we hope to continue to grow YP and make it a great place for everyone. So thank you to each and every one of you. Appreciate it. Wish I could be there. Hope you enjoy Chad Chandlee today. Thank you.
I know I think Scott's listening in hybrid, so congratulations again, Scott, for the YP Leader Award. We were very blessed to have you for 2 years as the YP president. As they were mentioned, nobody anticipated having to recap the role for 2 years, but you did a wonderful job and we're blessed. I want to take this time before we get to our presenter to recognize our incoming board. And I know most of them are in the room, so I'm going to ask you guys to stand real quick. As you can see them on the screen, but if you're here, stand, please. There they are. Can I get a round of applause, please? Your YP board is here for you. They want to help connect you with others. They want to help increase your engagement, and they want to listen to your ideas about what you want to see for your organization, because they are the board that speaks for the entire group. So go to them with your ideas. They're here to listen and hopefully get you involved as well. At this time, it is my honor to turn things over to our incoming YP board president and to introduce today's presenter. Please give a round of applause for Mr. Kevin Myers.
All right, Justine, you forgot my step stool. I think we are going from the tallest to shortest president transition we've ever had. So I just get the short jokes out there before you get bigger. First off, just welcome everyone. Very, very excited to be back in person, seeing a lot of very familiar faces here and some I don't know and hope to get to know, throughout the program this next year. As we all know, this past year has brought a lot of changes, challenges, to the world, to our lives, and even here with young professionals in Dubuque. I think a lot of questions of what are things going to look like, how long is this going to last? But I think as things have really been moving forward, we figured out what this is going to look like going forward and what we want it to look like. So we're still going to aim to have the same awesome program that we had when we were together in person, all the time, but still, going to be looking a little bit differently. I think the fact that we're going to be able to offer virtual options and just do some different activities than we did in the past will, really be a good thing for the organization here. So thank you to everyone that stayed engaged and on board with us throughout the pandemic. I know we have a lot of awesome speakers that still did their thing each month, and I would struggle giving a presentation virtually. So kudos to them, and again, kudos to you guys that still stayed with us through all that. So, but now here we are back to do what we do best, and that's really just getting together and just keep moving the mission forward of what YP is, and that's just again to really be have our footprint on what this younger organization in the workforce here in Dubuque are. So I know there's a lot of talent in this room, and I think you guys coming to things like this is only going to make you better for yourself and for your organization. So there is going to be some new things that we're going to be rolling out this year, things that we're really excited about. A few different events. We are going to be doing a re-engagement event here in August, and that's just going to be a fun get together, drinks, maybe some hors d'oeuvres, live music, and just an opportunity for us to hang out and re-engage what we haven't been able to do. We are still going to do the YP Symposium. We'll get back to the night of the museums that we had just started before everything kind of shut down. We'll still do our holiday party, but then we are looking at adding a couple newer events too. We do want to start doing some new member socials throughout the year, and we are talking about doing a gala sometime next winter or spring. So be on the lookout for that. Just stay tuned. But again, I just want to say again, thank you to you. Without you guys, without the board, Justine, the support from the chamber, and most of all our members, we wouldn't have any of these possibilities. So with that, I will turn this over to our speaker. I want to introduce our presenter today, Chad Chandlee. He's the president and chief operating officer at Kendall Publishing Company. Chad has worked at Kendall since 1998, moved back to Dubuque in 2000, and became president in 2005. Also in 2005, he started another education company called Great River Learning, and in 2016, started a social media company called Forge Social. Besides running these businesses, he is committed to helping Dubuque become and continue to be the best place to live, work, play, and do business. He is involved in several nonprofit organizations, including the Dream Center, the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque, and many others committed to helping kids in the tri-state area. Chad is happily married to his wife, Laura. They have 4 children, Alec, Anna, Leah, and Mary. When Chad isn't chauffeuring his children around or attending one of their events, you can find him running, biking, or swimming, sometimes all 3 when competing in triathlon. Chad and Laura also love to travel, enjoy new countries and different cultural experiences. So with that, please give a warm welcome to Chad Chandlee.
All right, well, while he's getting that, let me just say this. One, I love YP. When the chamber came up with this concept years ago, I was first in line, thought it was a great concept, something that we've always needed to do in this community is to try to keep our young people here. And also not just keep our young people here, but keep them engaged from a leadership perspective. So I love this group. I love everything that you guys represent. I love the fact that you guys are, when I look out and I talk to people and I hear about YP, it's like, you guys are the future of Dubuque, and you're the future of what's happening. You are going to drive it to places that we couldn't take it. And I'm just so excited about this group. But also let me say, if Scott's still listening, it excites me a lot that Scott aged out. When I see him at the lake, I can remind him that he's now in my camp. I was never able to be aged in, so he's aged out. And I also question Scott's priorities because I think I know where he is. And if he's listening to this presentation, instead of doing what he should be doing, I'm questioning a little bit of things about it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about leadership, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about leadership. I was like, oh, we should talk about leadership. I'm like, leadership is a very difficult topic to talk about, I think. So I'm going to do my best. But when you think about leadership, so if I were to ask you, like, what's your definition of leadership? Who has a definition of leadership? Or who thinks they know what leadership is? Anybody? Nobody. Nobody has, you don't even have a concept of what leadership is. Well, Google does. Google has, if you look at 3 billion hits on leadership. So what I say is leadership is these 2 things. I'm not going to let you dwell on this too long, because to me, leadership is, these are the best ones that I saw and I like. But then I go, oh, well, leadership is this, and 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 leadership is this. I'm like, it's whatever it means to you, in my opinion. It is, everybody has their own definition. You think what it is, and if that's what you think it is, and that's what, when you see a good leader, and you're like, they're a really good leader. You don't really need to show somebody else that they're, it's like, if that's what a good leadership looks like to you, that's what it is. It's, to me, it's like wine. It's like people say, I love wine guy, I love red wine. So people say, well, what kind of red wine do you like? I'm like, I like all red wine. But they're like, well, what kind should I, I really don't drink wine. What kind should I like? I'm like, you should drink whatever you like. That's what you should drink. And if it's a $10 bottle, that's what you should drink. If you like it, you should drink that. And I think leadership is the same way, right? It's like, if it's what you think, then that's what it is. So today, what I'm going to kind of just walk through, I'm like, to me, there's 3 pieces of leadership. Like, think about leadership, you go, okay, there's personal, I'm going to talk about characteristics of leaders, because I think characteristics of leaders are great characteristics of people, they're great characteristics of employees. So if you see characteristics of leaders that you like, and you're not in a leadership position, you can be a great employee by espousing those same characteristics. And I think that you can be a great person by espousing those same traits and characteristics. So years ago, I read an article from Psychology Today about what is the #1 best personality trait that you can have. And it was an interesting one to me that I hadn't thought of. It's conscientiousness is what they said. There's this long-term study on what is the one thing that if you have one characteristic, what would it be? And it's just everybody loves that. And I thought conscientiousness is one that nobody thinks about. I think about it. I have 4 kids. I talk about it all the time at home. I'm like, to me, conscientiousness individually is when you see garbage on the floor, pick it up. That's being conscientious. When you see the dishes are clean, put them away. The light's on, you turn it off. It's like it's not. It's very easy to be conscientious, right? Like, so, #1, from a personal perspective, they're like, that's the #1 personal trait that they pointed to. From a leader perspective, you think of it like a leader that is very conscientious is constantly thinking about, if I make this decision, how does it impact you? How is it going to impact the people that work for me? How is it going to impact the customers that buy from me? How is it going to impact anyone around me? And so leaders that are conscientious are really great people to be around. You just like being around, right? And you're going to hear me say that. You just like being around them a lot because it's sort of a little bit of a theme. From an employee perspective, the one thing I find is conscientious workers and employees are the most efficient people you have. They don't come to you and say, hey, Chad, do you think I should do this? Do you think I should do that? They just do it. They don't ask, they just do it, and you don't even need to know about it or you don't know about it. They're so efficient, and you love these people because they see something needs to get done, they just do it. So one that's really tied closely to this in my mind is the next one, empathy. So you hear a lot about empathy, right? Empathy, sympathy, I don't know how many people can actually really give you a great definition between the two, but we all kind of heard that 100 times. Well, sympathy is this, empathy is this. It's like, well, and I'm not going to read this stuff to you, I think you can read it, but just give you a perspective on it. So personal. Like when you are with somebody that has empathy, don't you feel good around them? Like you're talking with them and they're like, man, this person understands. They understand what I'm saying. Like you walk away and you feel good. It's just how it is. They may not agree with you, they may not do anything, but you feel good just being around them. From a leadership perspective, you think about leaders that show empathy. One, they make really good personal, emotional connections with the people, right? Like as an employee that person cares about you. You know that they listen to you, and you know that when they make decisions, you know that they've thought about all that stuff. You may not like the decision, but you can accept the decision because you know they thought about it. You knew that they thought about what this impact is going to be on you, and then they made the decision that they thought was in the best interest of the entire company, not just you. And people are okay with that, right? You don't always have to like the decision, but you respect it. You're like, hey, it's not always about me, but I can deal with that. From an employee perspective, great employees can imagine what the leadership has to go through to make that decision, right? Like when you hear a lot of people complain about a leadership decision, a lot of times it's like, well, when you really get down to it, they're thinking about how does this impact me and me alone. And really great employees that show empathy, they're like, oh, you probably had to think about these other things. I would have made that decision, but I get it. Like, that's all you're looking for, right? It's a little acceptance of the decision. The next one I bumped up on the list because it's one of my personal favorites. Is curiosity. So a lot of people think that by asking questions, you look dumb, or you think people are afraid to admit things, right? Like if I ask you a question about it, it means I don't know. And I look at it the exact opposite. If you don't ask a question that you should have, you're going to look foolish down the road because you're going to make a decision, you're going to say something or do something. It was foolish, and all you had to do is ask like one question, and you would know that was not what we needed. So from a personal perspective, you go to a bar, you go to a social event, you meet somebody you've never met. Who's the greatest person to meet in that scenario? Like, it makes you feel good when you sit down and you talk to this person and they ask you about you, right? They ask you about you. You sit down and you talk to somebody for an hour and they're like, hey, tell me about this. Tell me about why you went to school there. Why did you choose that major? What in your life major? And you're like, man, you walk away and you're like, man, that person really thought about me. They care about me. And that's a person I want to be around, right? Think about dating. Like, if you're a girl and the guy doesn't ask you anything about you and he's talking about himself the whole time, I don't think that's, there's a needs to go over well, right? But if you're a guy, think about this. Just ask her questions. Ask her questions, right? And she's going to tell you things, and you're going to learn things. You're going to figure out who she is and why she is who she is. And she's going to love you for that. So personal, take it to leadership and saying, okay, leaders that don't ask questions or leaders that aren't curious don't make great decisions. They don't, because they haven't figured out the second and third level things, right? Like, okay, tell me more about that. You asked you this question, you told me the answer. Now I want to know, I want to understand. So what you're telling me is, if we did this, you could do this. Yes. Okay, second level, now we can go third level. Tell me why that would be advantageous to me. I can make a much better decision if I know second, third, even four. I would say in our company, we talk about fourth level. It's very hard to get there, but if you do, decision making will go up dramatically. Employees that are curious. I used to have this thought when my old boss used to say to me, it's like, Chad, aren't you just curious? Like, don't you just want to know? I'm like, yeah, I guess I do kind of, right? Like, employees that are curious, they ask tons of questions, and they come up with the most creative solutions, because they are the ones that ask more questions than anybody else, and they're the ones that know the most about what you're going to decide upon, and they make the best decision. So you go and you know an employee that's very curious and you're used to that, they'll make the best decisions. So as a leader, I go ask this person about something, I need their advice, or I need to take this from your perspective, what would you do? I know that person, I know they've already asked all these questions. I don't need to go because I already know. That's who they are, that's what they're gonna do. People that don't do that, then you got to question how they came up with the decision, where did they get it from, do they ask enough questions? It's like when you guys are too young. It's like when your kid comes home and they're like, hey, I'm going out with so-and-so tonight, and then you're like, okay, you can either go, okay, or you can be like, oh, well, how are you gonna get there? Who's driving? Other parents gonna be home. It's like all of a sudden you go down all this path, and it's like you got one way to go, and when you get to that third degree with your kids, they start hating you. Like, not good. My job is not good. The next one, I'd say awareness. Okay, so we talk about this a lot at our company. Know oneself. Laura used to work for us. She knows this, right? Know oneself. Right. So to me, know oneself is one of the most important things as an employee in a company and a leader. People that know themselves, and you think about your own personal relationships, right? Like your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, kids, friends, you know the ones that know themselves, right? Like you just think about it for a second, you're like, this person does not know themselves very well. And if they don't know themselves very well, they're very difficult to be around at times. Because people that know themselves well, they correct themselves when they know they're wrong. They take responsibility, they apologize quickly, and they try to fix things that they know they're not good at. Right? So they're very easy to be around because if something happens wrong, you know that they're going to cop to it and be like, okay, yeah, my fault, won't happen again, or whatever else. From a leader perspective, like, so for me, when I was younger, and I've been president of Kendall for a long time, for 16 years. So back when I would have qualified to be in this group. And I remember thinking, you know, hot shot, think you know it all, you think you know what leadership is about, you got all this stuff straightened out. And then what you figure out is like, you gotta really know yourself, because if you don't know yourself, other people start to tell you what you don't know about yourself. That's never a good sign. And so over the years, I've just really figured out and put a lot of effort in figuring out, like, what am I good at, what am I not, right? And so then the next step is, okay, it's great that you know that. As in a leadership position, it's like, okay, now who are you gonna surround yourself with? In my company, I gotta surround myself with people that aren't like me. So an example is the person that Laura used to work for. Like, I am the least rah-rah person you'll probably ever meet. I'm somewhat monotone, I'll get excited. I just had my birthday. My kids were giving me crap about the fact is like, do you like it or don't you? I said, I like it. Like, well, it doesn't look like it. I like it. I'll wear it, I promise. Like, but the person that she worked for is a rah-rah guy. Like, he's a guy that can get people excited and talks like, that's not me. That is not me. If you need that from me, you're not good. Because I just can't do it. It's not authentic. And if it's not authentic, it doesn't work, right? So for this person, it's very authentic. He's into it. People see it. They know it. And it works for him. It would not, his way of managing would not work. So I know that about myself. And when people report to me, I tell them right out of the gate, here are the things I'm not good at. You've heard me probably. So, and for us too. And she's heard me like, here are the things that I'm good at. If you need these from me, you shouldn't work for me. Because I'm not going to do this. Like, some things I work on, I work hard on, but it doesn't come natural for me. So I surround myself with people that are good at it. From an employee perspective, people that are self-aware are the easiest people in your office to manage. You are the easiest people to manage. Because if I have something, I just go, hey, you know, you got to work on this. And they're like, you know, or thanks for telling me that. I've been trying to, how can you help me figure this out, right? Can I, as the person you report to, can I help you figure that out? Yes, we can work together. The person that's not self-aware is like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. Why are you coming down on me? Why are you so angry with me? It's not my problem, it's your problem. Like, those people are impossible to manage, and I try to get them out of our company as fast as possible. To the point that when we interview, like, I don't interview hardly anymore, but when I do, one question I used to ask, I love this, and it's the old question about strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, so this is self-aware. Most people are not self-aware. So if you ask somebody their strengths, they'll give you a whole list, right? Here, I'm trying to get a job. I'll give you this one, this one, this one. You say, well, tell me about some of the things you need to improve upon. And they're like, say you're interviewing for a sales job. Yeah, I'm impatient. Like, that doesn't count. Like, you can't, impatient, you think I want an impatient salesperson? Like, right? Like, do you really believe that well, you know, that's what you're taught. So, well, try to take it negative, turn it into a positive. So I'm always like, no, I'm not accepting. Not accepting that answer. I want a real weakness. So I had this guy one time say to me, he goes, Chad, you don't understand. I'm like, well, what don't I understand? He goes, if I give you my weaknesses, you're not going to hire me. And I said, well, let me tell you this. If you don't give me your weaknesses, I for sure won't hire you. I will not hire you. I promise you, you will not get hired. And matter of fact, if you don't give me a weakness, the interview is over. Because I will not work with people that don't have weaknesses. Because I don't know anyone in my life that doesn't have something critical. And if you are that person, and I don't want you in my company because you can take my time. You know, it's like, there's nobody in this world that doesn't have something they can improve upon. For you to sit here in front of me and tell me that you have nothing to improve upon, I'm like, that's a blatant lie, right? And so you can't work for me. He gave me something. You know, it was like we had a good understanding. All right, decisiveness. This one is, you ever go around and you're talking to your buddies or whatever, you're like, hey, where do you want to go from here? Everybody's like, you're like, all right, let's go to there. I don't want to go down. All right, well, let's go first to me. Well, I don't really want to go there. What do you want to do? You are impossible. To me, the people that are not decisive are impossible to be around, right? You never know where they stand. They don't tell you where they stand. And when they do say something, you're not sure you believe it because you're like, they just say, oh, I'm telling you this. Like, and then 5 minutes later, they might want to go to Elmick. You're like, I thought you just said, I'm going. Like, so from a personal perspective, people that are not decisive are very difficult to be around. Leaders that are decisive are very easy to follow because the one thing employees hate in my mind, what they hate worse than a decision they don't agree with is a decision that might change in 2 days, right? So you're like, okay, I'm all in. You told me this is what we're doing, I'm all in. And then 2 days later, you're like, you know what? I was just kind of, wasn't sure, but I think we're just gonna do this instead. Is that all right? And you're like, I spent 2 days trying to figure this out for you, and now we're going this direction. Like, as an employee, I think that's impossible to work with. I don't know how people work with those people, and I'm not saying it's not okay to change your mind with new information. I'm not saying that. But I think you understand what I'm saying is when you go down this path, you need to be decisive, and people need to know that what you're saying is what you're going to do. From an employee perspective, same thing. If I ask you a question and you hem and haw and go back and forth, and you're like, well, I don't know. Maybe I should go ask Joe or go ask, Jill or it's like, no, I'm asking you, what do you think? Tell me what you think. Like, I want to know. Like if you say, I need to go do more research on that for whatever reason, and here's where I can go get it, that's fine. But then you come back and give me an answer and don't come back and do this. Well, here's what I found, and here's what I think, but you probably know better, and you should probably make the decision that you. Well, if I was going to do that, I wouldn't have wasted my time coming and asking you because you're the one that knows, not me. Like I'm asking you for a reason. Like I could have done that 2 days ago and had a decision. So your common themes efficiency as an employee is a big thing, right? Okay, accountability. Accountability is huge. You hear this all the time, right? You have to be accountable. You have to be accountable as an employee. You have to be accountable as a person. You have to be accountable as a leader. So we have at work this book we talk about. It's QBQ, question behind the question, and it's based on this concept of you are always somewhat accountable, right? Like it's somewhat always something you could have done that would have impacted the decision. So we make all of our employees read this, and I just believe that, hey, I get that that wasn't your fault, but if you backtrack now and think about it, what could you have done differently that maybe would have had a better impact? So my son, when he was 12, he was going out for football, and you need a mouth guard. My wife was not in sports, and he tells my wife at 9:45, the next day is football practice, that they will not allow him to practice without a mouth guard. And she's like coming to me, and she's like, what am I gonna do? I can't get to target time. And I'm like, yeah, and they won't just, you gotta like mold it. So he's crying, I'm gonna miss the first day of practice, and it's this whole big thing. And I was beyond irritated with myself. And so I made my son do a book report on QBQ. And I just talked to him, I said, look, pal, here's the deal. He's like, well, it's mom's fault. Mom can't get to that. And I said, no, it's not your mom's fault at all. Like, what could you have done differently that would have impacted this situation, right? You came home from school at what time? 2:30. You have 2:30 to basically 9. Tell your mom that you needed this, right? And you know your mom, she will go get it for you. I said, so this is all on you now. Like, he's like, well, and I'm like, all right, so we had this argument with him about it, and he still didn't get it. So then another thing happened, I'm like, all right, came home with a book. Here, you're gonna read this. I said, I want you to do a book report. No, what do you think? And if you talk to my son today, he will remember, because I bring it up all the time at home. I'm like, QBQ. And we say to work, QBQ. So if I think about that, I go, so people that take responsibility for their actions, right? They correct their mistakes quickly. They don't blame others. Thinking about from a leadership perspective, I think accountability and leadership looks a little bit different. Leaders that take accountability are people that got your back, right? So they have your back. When you screw up, they take accountability for it because you work for them. And when you have success, the success is yours, right? Like, I'm not taking accountability for this success because it's kind of assumed, right? If my team does well, I don't need anybody telling me. It's one of my things that talk about what don't I do well. I don't give accolades well because I think, well, you guys do well, and you know you do well, and what do I, so I have to work on it. So I start to tell people, hey, you did a great job, you did a great job. I just think, if you don't hear from me, I tell people you're coming. If you don't hear from me, you're doing awesome. If I'm in your life, it's probably not a good thing, right? This is probably not good. So employees, so think about when things go wrong, right? There's a mistake. Employees that take accountability, what they do, they go figure out how to fix it. First thing they do, figure out how to fix it, they make it better, and they move on. Employees that have no accountability, they go figure out whose fault it was and figure out how to see why. That's the first thing they do. And if you are that person, you drive your manager, right? Like, if somebody comes to me with a problem, you will not hear me ask, who did this? You will never hear me ask this. I am always, how did it happen? How do we fix it? Like, do you know how it happened so we can fix it? Yep, fix it. We'll talk about the other stuff later. Like, it doesn't matter. Right now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. I don't care whose fault it is. I care about customers pissed. We need to fix it right now. Like, I don't care if it's your fault or your fault. It doesn't matter. Like, that's from an employee perspective. I'm like, that's what you got to think about. It's like, it's nobody's, when it happens, it's like, don't worry about whose fault it is. All right, next, ambiguity acceptance. Some people don't do well with ambiguity, right? They need everything spelled out for them, and they are very hard to work with. They're very hard to be around. And you're like, okay, I want you to go do this. And they're like, well, then they start asking you 10 questions about that. You're like, look, I don't know, figure it out. Like, I don't know. It's roughly 25 bucks. I don't know. Well, is it 22? Is it 20? It's like, I don't care. Just go do it. And so people that can work with ambiguity are very easy to work with. You give them simple instructions. They use their head. They're thoughtful people. Think about this. The more, and I don't know, this might be too broad of an overstatement. I would say it's true about me. I don't know, maybe this is too broad. I would say for me, when I give you very broad ambiguity, like a lot of ambiguity when I ask you to do something for me, it's because I trust you to a super high level. Like, I think you're great. I think you're smart. I think that you will figure it out. And I don't need to do it because you can do it. And I want you to do it. And you're smarter than I am in this. It's like, whatever, we all have what we do. And I'm like, if I have to spell it out, it takes too much time. I'm all about this efficiency thing, right? It's not efficient if I have to spell it out. If I have to spell it out to that degree, I'll just do it. So always think of the more your boss maybe has a lot of ambiguity, I think it's a high level sign of trust. They trust you, they trust your thought process, they trust what you're going to do. And so I take that as a real positive. All right, last one, I think. Yeah, last one. All right, confidence. To me, confidence, and I would say confidence, not cocky. You know, like if you're in athletics, you can see it, right? You see the cocky kid, you see the confident kid. Cocky kid, I don't want. Confident kid, I love. I love seeing that kid on football, basketball, see the way they walk, the way they talk, their actions. They're not cocky, but you know that they know they're going to handle their stuff on. Like, I love that, and I love that about employees. Employees that just know, they know they're good. It doesn't mean they're not afraid to ask. It doesn't mean that they're, all knowing or anything else. But what it means is that they're okay with knowing that about themselves, right? You don't need to constantly build them up. They're not coming to your office. That's one of my weaknesses. Like, you need to be constantly built up. Probably not your boss. Like that's not. I struggle with that. So I like confident people. I don't like cocky people. I like the confidence that you can get it done and you're going to nail it. And I ask you to do it. And you're like, Chad, I got this. I'm like, awesome. I believe in this. Leaders want these types of people to follow. So they have confidence in their abilities and decision making. It's like there's no second guessing from employees. You know, like if you have a confident leader, you're second guessing them much less, right? Like you're like, hey, it's like when I was a kid, I know this didn't work for you guys because in my world, my kids, when I used to, so you'd ask your dad something, right? Your dad would come up with some total BS, but you were like, he knows. Because you asked him and he's like, this is it, this is what it is. And you're like, yeah, that's what it is. So then you go tell your buddies, and I'm like, dude, that's not. You're like, totally trusted my dad. But because he was confident, you totally bought in, right? Like I lost that whole era because I would say it to my kids be like, I'm just gonna. So at the end of the day, to me, it's like, hey, just bring this full circle. It's like characteristics that to me make you very remarkable as an employee, as a person, as a leader. It's like those same things transcend across in my mind, transcend, right? And if you do these things, then there's a longer list of them. But to me, it's like how many can you do? But I just think that it's like people say, well, that the leaders need to do this. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Employees need to do this. It's the same stuff, just manifest differently, right? Manifest differently because yeah, I get to make the final decision, but it's just as important for you as it is for me. And on a personal thing, I was like, the people that you remember, so be remarkable, right? People that you remember, do these things. And that's like, so Monday was our first day full back in the office. We hired all these new people I've never met, I've never seen them. And so I'm meeting all these new people and I met this one person. She started a month ago and I was talking to another manager, talked to her for 5 minutes. And I just said to the other manager, I go, we need July. She's good. She's good. And you just know it because of her remarkable like personality and the questions. And she was curious and I was like, she's going to be good. I don't know what she's going to do in this company, but we need to make sure she has the opportunity to do it. It's just going to be great. And that was a 5-minute conversation with the president of the company, and she's a brand new employee. She has no idea the impression she made not only on me, but when I said something to her manager, goes, I know. So that's it. So thank you. It's awesome to be in person. So I was very happy when we talked about this in person because I've done this Zoom thing and I like it. So thank you.
So that brings us to the conclusion of the day. Not enough time for questions, but mark your calendars, July 21st. We don't know the location yet, but Justin Stinson will be our speaker for the next month's luncheon. So hope to see all of you again. Bring your friends and have a great rest of your day.
Have you said you want curiosity? Have you watched? It's all directly.
Speaker.